10 games that were ruined by their fan bases. 7 kinds of fans that ruin things for the rest of us. 6 games ruined by casual gamers. Okay, hopefully we all know by now that regardless of what these professional media outlets say, a fandom can't ruin a game. Any game is still the same exact game, whether or not it has a good fandom, a bad fandom, or no fandom at all. But can a popular game's fan base, like that of Five Nights at Freddy's, Undertale, or now Baldi's Basics, hurt the gaming industry as a whole? Could they even ruin gaming as many people say they are? Well, yes and no. I don't believe for 1 second that these fan bases can ruin the entire gaming industry. However, I do believe content from these fan bases can lead to disgust towards the industry, causing it to lose potential customers, therefore harming the gaming industry. And whether they acknowledge it or not, I think this is why many gamers hate these fan bases. In a somewhat twisted way, some gamers may believe alienating these, quote, cancerous and toxic communities can help the industry overall. However, this line of thinking is flawed for several reasons I'll go over in a bit. But in the end, I'm here to argue that the gamers who hate on these games and fan bases are the ones mainly responsible for turning people away from the gaming industry. In other words, I want to show why I believe the people hating on these bad fan bases are actually the ones, quote, ruining gaming without realizing it. Oh, by the way, I'm Etra from Etra Games. I do either gameplay analysis or an industry analysis like this, hopefully around every other week, to help shape the current gaming community by spreading information all around. The problem I want to address today is about hating on bad or, quote, cancerous fan bases, as mentioned earlier, and why that is actually hurting the gaming community as a whole. And to do this, I want to analyze why specifically the fanbase of Bendy, Five Nights, and more are unnecessarily hated. And yes, I said fan base. In my video about why all these games on screen are popular, which I'll link to at the end, I was able to chain all these games you see on screen together through a variety of gameplay and social links to create a linked fanbase. But for now, just know that this chain of games mostly share the same chain fanbase, which I will call the Chainbase from now on. Anyway, as mentioned earlier, I believe people hate on the Chainbase because the type of fan content it is associated with can deter people from playing games in the first place. Yet, the obvious question is that if they're afraid of people in the Chainbase turning people away from gaming, why are they trying to keep people in the Chainbase from gaming? I mean, if you're afraid of the gaming industry losing customers, why would you try to actively keep someone from gaming? Well, this ties into the main stereotype associated with people in the Chainbase, being that people in the Chainbase are children that don't play any games outside their chain. Now, this may not seem like an issue, because what's so wrong about just playing certain indie games and not supporting the high-budget or AAA industry? Well, currently there is an ongoing problem facing the AAA industry, where the cost to create a game is rising drastically, but the amount of players playing games are not rising quick enough to meet the costs. Now, Extra Credits has a wonderful set of videos that explains this topic in more detail that I'll link to at the end of this video. But their conclusion for the AAA industry surviving this crisis in a few years was either AAA games will have to start costing $80 each, or the audience buying those games will have to grow. The problem is, if games start costing $80, the AAA industry will lose more customers, causing games to be even more expensive, which will make them lose more customers, and you get the picture. Now, of course, developers will find ways around this eventually, but things will become chaotic, to say the least, in every aspect of gaming, not just the AAA industry. That is, unless more people support the AAA industry. Meaning, there is essentially a ticking time bomb on the price of games in the gaming industry as a whole, which can only be diffused by getting more customers. So, if the Chainbase is only supporting their own circle and losing customers for the AAA market, having the Chainbase stop gaming and creating poor content would only benefit the entire industry in the eyes of someone outside the Chainbase. Now, this mindset is usually presented by influential YouTubers in the Chainbase who create gaming content, but notice that most subscribers only watch content related to games in the Chainbase and nothing else. Yet it really doesn't matter if it's true or not, because if the most recognizable names in the Chainbase suggest that they don't support the AAA industry, then someone can easily believe it as the truth, and to them, it would mean hating on these fan bases won't hurt the gaming industry as a whole. The other part of this stereotype is that the Chainbase consists of mostly children, and that the children are what makes these games cancerous. And some will say proof of this is Doki Doki Literature Club, a psychological horror dating simulator, and supposedly the only non-cancerous game in the Chainbase, because it's aimed towards an older demographic. The whole scenario of it even being in this Chainbase confused many, and if you have seen my previous video I mentioned earlier, you will know it fits perfectly in the Chainbase with a watchable challenge for Let's Players and the musical hit song Your Reality. And assuming my conclusion is true, which it has been ever since I posted that video with Bendy Chapter 4 linking to itself and music artists following, and Baldi's Basics doing the same thing but with first-person horror, you can possibly prove that the majority of people in this linked fanbase are children, or at least under 18, since Doki Doki Literature Club's view counts are consistently less than half of all other series on the chain. And again, if you have seen the previous video, you'll know why view counts are important. So if less than half of the usual members in the Chainbase were in the DDLC community, the majority of people usually in the Chainbase are probably under 18 or young enough to be questioned by others in the household when playing something that looks like this. So, now that we know why people hate on the Chainbase and know how valid the most common stereotype associated with people in the Chainbase is, it's time to point out the flaw in the system of trying to alienate the Chainbase. Basically, in order to convince someone that the Chainbase is so cancerous, you need to show all the terrible content they created, share it across Twitter, Tumblr, and YouTube to show these people how bad these fan bases are. But, in doing so, the people who hate the Chainbase are the ones spreading the content that supposedly makes the industry lose customers. I have no solid evidence, but I am 100% certain that most fans of Cuphead don't want to share an image like this around. So instead, the only winners here are the YouTubers and social media influencers who post and spread this type of content everywhere, and literally profit off it. And although this, quote, terrible content originated from these fan bases, I don't quite think they're to blame. Look at Rick and Morty and Steven Universe. They went for years without being called cancer until millions of people decide to draw attention to one piece of specific fan art and one paragraph written by a Rick and Morty fan. The same goes for the Chainbase. There may not actually be much, quote, cancerous content. The only difference here is that these real gamers actually have a reason to find this content and share it, which is why I believe you see it everywhere. So regardless if you are in the Chainbase or not, in order to help prevent the chaos mentioned earlier, simply do not click on any video or post that shows or talks about Bendy, Cuphead, or whatever cancer. Just don't like or share anything like that in the first place, because the only reason these posts or videos will get popular is if people click on them, share, and talk about them. If you want to take it a step further to help prevent this chaos, play games and make content from both the Chainbase and AAA games. Help make the new norm gamers who are in both groups. It's a win-win-win scenario where the industry is supported, people within the Chainbase play arguably higher quality games, and no one gets called cancer. Finally, share this message, whether it be by sharing this video to get the message out there, or by making your own content. do whatever, I really don't care. Just spread the message that in order to keep gaming alive, we need to stop hating each other and stop being divided. Because if we don't, this art may die off a few years after we just started. But hey, as always, thank you for watching and listening to my convoluted arguments. Click here to watch that video about the Chainbase being popular that I referenced like 20 times. And if you liked this video, consider subscribing in order to be notified of my new videos when they come out. Regardless of your choice, have a wonderful day, and I will catch you all next time.